and welcome to the SciFirst MovieTalk episode. So, in this episode, I will be discussing Disney's 2015 live-action remake, well, the remake to their 1950s all-time classic, Cinderella, this time as directed by Kenneth Branagh. Believe it or not, this is actually only my second Disney live-action remake that I've actually seen. The first being 2019's Aladdin, but watched before I was reviewing movies, so therefore Cinderella is actually my first review of a Disney live-action remake. And that includes, to be fair, some of their early remakes, such as The 101 Dalmatians and The Jungle Book. I'm still yet to even watch them. There's no real specific reason for it. I haven't been deliberately avoiding them. Not at all. I have actually watched their live-action adaptation of the 1951's Alice in Wonderland with their 2010 film of the same name. However, I would say that this is actually more of a continuation of the story rather than a remake, as it doesn't actually rehash events that had already occurred. Instead, building on Alice's first time in Wonderland from the first animation movie. Now, I'm not actually sure where I really stand with the Disney live-action remakes. I know that they can be quite divisive with quite many people. That might actually be quite a good topic for another conversation, I think. But in reviewing this film, I didn't quite know where to go best, comparing it to the original animation or reviewing it on its own accord. So I've probably opted to go from a little of column A and a little from column B. And after all, it's a remake after all, and I don't think I could actually talk about it without any reference to the original on which it's based. But overall, I do want to give these movies their fair dues, and so have left enough time between watching the originals and the remakes so as not to unintentionally bias or skew my opinion. That's the hope anyway. So, Cinderella. For those of you who may not have seen my review of the 1950s classic animation, this is based on the fairy tale by Charles Perrault. But many versions of similar stories have been told all around the world. It is your classic rags to riches story, with an oppressed young woman being lifted from despair by a knight in shining armour, or, in the case of this story, a prince, if you like. Now, in the original, this was indeed very true, and was fully represented, with the technically the incarceration of Cinderella in her family home by her stepfamily. However, the remake changes the knight in shining armour aspect, basically, if you like, to bring it up to more relevance to a more modern time. Cinderella isn't held captive. She's actually able to leave when she like, and actually does so. But at a point, it's made that this is her family home, and her loyalty to her parents and a promise she made before they died, they keep her there. And so, they've twisted the context a bit and made Cinderella less of a helpless young woman and more one that, was determined and focused in her resolution to see her promise through. In this adaptation, we actually get more of Ella, as she's actually called to begin with in this movie, more of Ella's backstory. Seeing more of her childhood with her mum and her dad, as played by Hayley Atwell and Ben Chaplin, respectively, with Eloise Webb playing the younger version of Ella, yes. And we get to see more of that backstory than we did in the original animation, building up a very strong family vibe on which the film leans heavily on as it progresses. Tragedy strikes, however, when Ella's mum passes away, leaving her dad to bring her up on his own. Now, again, unlike the original, Ella, now played by Lily James, is actually grown up before her dad then remarries the infamous Lady Tremaine, her wicked stepmother, as played by Cate Blanchett. This kind of bringing her and her two daughters, Anastasia and Drizella, as played by Holliday Grainger and Sophie McShera, respectively, into their family home. Further tragedy hits when Ella's father then also passes away whilst on a business trip, leaving her and her stepfamily destitute. Slowly but surely, Ella's stepfamily grind her down and belittle her to the point that she becomes little more than the family's servant and is given the ugly and malicious nickname Cinderella by her stepsisters, owing to being covered in soot after sleeping next to the dying embers on the fire to keep warm overnight. From here, the classic Cinderella elements are introduced with a slight twist. Cinderella gets to know the prince before she goes to the ball, but they never reveal who each other is. And this is when they get actually infatuated with each other, such that it is the prince that calls for the grand ball to be organised, with all the maidens in the land to be invited from all walks of life in an attempt to meet the mysterious woman once again. Well, Cinderella's attempts to attend the ball are thwarted, of course, by her despicable family, wanting to keep all the attention on them. That is, until Cinderella's fairy godmother, as played by Helena Bonham Carter, makes an appearance and gives Cinderella the makeover of all makeovers and a magical night to remember, allowing her to attend the ball, dance with the prince, and find out that he is the one and fall in love. But no later than the stroke of midnight, of course, when the spell would be broken. In her rush, however, Cinderella loses one of her glass slippers, which isn't affected by the spell ending, it would seem. Once again, all part of the fairy godmother's master plan, no doubt. The prince then launches a kingdom-wide search to find the one who the glass slipper fits, marry Cinderella, and of course live happily ever after. So, I did actually sit there through the movie with a feeling of familiarity. I really did. I know I hadn't seen it before, like I had actually been here before, and I couldn't actually quite put my finger on it until late into the film when I realised the whole feel of the movie, including its soundtrack, had the distinct aroma of 1993's Shakespeare adaptation, A Much Ado About Nothing. Now, I didn't know when I actually watched Cinderella that it was actually directed by Kenneth Branagh, as is Much Ado. But not only that, the music is indeed composed by the same person, Patrick Doyle. The similarities in style, tone and overall feel were absolutely uncanny. The music, especially with each movie really using a quaint kind of little ditty throughout in order to capture the audience's imagination. This movie takes elements from the animated original and, in some respects, it's true to its origins, but takes a number of artistic liberties with the story in order to kind of bring it up to date for a more modern audience, whilst still trying to capture the essence of the original story. All told, it is a beautiful movie, very much like its predecessor, but in that, like its predecessor, it's simply that and nothing more. It has moments, but fails to be truly inspiring or memorable for that matter of fact. What the movie aspires to be is a light and breezy take on the fairy tale, and the style and the execution of the characters does represent this. As a result, the characters in the main are fairly flat, if I'm honest. And, you know, the film has been orientated squarely at as a family film, and quite a lot has really been softened as a result. Cate Blanchett is absolutely fantastic as Lady Tremaine, one of the vilest villains ever to grace the Disney screen. And she makes a tremendous entrance, but ultimately, even she fades into the background. And although you can tell Kate really has it in her to really make this role her own, it is not played nowhere near dark enough. There are even a few points at which we even feel sorry for her and even sympathise with her. And this does actually diminish Cinderella's plight and suffering somewhat. Kind of playing again to the film's light and soft feel. We even get to hear that she may not get the ending that she actually wanted 100%, but she still gets an ending with the partnership with a man of standing. So in this, one of the more standout elements of the original animation has been lost, in my opinion, and removed in preference for a happier feel, which I don't begrudge. I just think that it does actually limit the power that this movie could have had. Cinderella's stepsisters also had a more playful feel to them. Still mean enough with their words, absolutely, but never strong enough to be truly vile. They were certainly mean, self-centered, and extremely spoiled, but again, softened overall, with even disdain being dealt to them by their mother. As a movie on its own, and also as a remake, I did enjoy watching it overall. There wasn't really anything I didn't like to any great extent. I just wish that they hadn't played it as safe with this one. The story allowed for more scope, and given that this was a remake of one of their earlier classics, which, to be honest, was mostly filler, the filmmakers could have taken more artistic liberties with this one, I really do feel, without upsetting audiences. Perhaps, of course, unlike some of the remakes of more iconic Disney movies, as we've had. You know, I did enjoy the fact that we got more of Cinderella's backstory in this film, which I think served well in respect to the story which transpires in this movie to set up Cinderella's frame of mind, constitution, conviction, and her love and devotion for her parents, which was the key reason as to why Cinderella didn't just leave and indeed put up with the hurtful and vile way her stepfamily treated her. I also enjoyed the fact that the film also included the mice and other assorted animals as the animation did, including Lady Tremaine's devilish cat, Lucifer. I thought that it was a really nice touch and a real nice nod to the animation without them being overused. Initially, I must admit, I wasn't keen that they had included them in the movie. It did put me off a little bit at the start, as they didn't serve no real purpose in the original, and seemed like an unnecessary addition here. However, they weren't overused, and in this remake, and they couldn't speak, not per se anyway, which did keep the movie grounded. But there was certainly an inference made that Cinderella could talk and understand them, which the plot did kind of draw on a couple of times in a number of places. They didn't seem out of place, however, and it was a real nostalgic nod, which did indeed end up putting a smile on my face, I must say. One other element I also thought worked very well was Helena Bonham Carter's take on the fairy godmother. She gave it her usual offbeat, quirky twist, which actually did work very well against one of the most iconic roles in the movie, with some excellent comedy and brilliantly magical sequences. Okay, so we didn't have Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo. Yes, hang on, I forgot, this isn't a musical. I forgot to mention that. But I think what we did get was a brilliant way to bridge the distance between the two movies and provide Carter with a role that she could actually make her own. Overall, like I said earlier, this is a beautifully quaint movie. And And I think it is on a par with the original animation in terms of quality and delivery, and with some excellent nods of appreciation to its predecessor. However, like its predecessor, it never really goes beyond that initial premise and fails to deliver something truly meaningful and special, with much of the power that the original did have, specifically with regards to the relationship between Cinderella and her stepfamily, kind of being lost in translation in an effort to bring the story and the ideologies of the original to a more modern audience. In some respect, in this sense, as the power was lost, this film did not carry the emotion of the original animation, instead opting for more softened and a brighter approach, which was nice enough, but meant that the characters were never fully developed, nor used to their full potential. Although average overall, I would say the movie is certainly worth a watch. It is very pleasant, and in no way diminishes the original animation. And in fact, it actually helps to clarify one thing which has always puzzled me, the glass slipper, and how it actually fits nobody else but Cinderella's foot. Turns out there is actually magic at play. I knew it. So yes, it is a nice movie. It is just a beautiful movie. I don't think you're going to be disappointed with it. Give it a go, but it just doesn't. It doesn't build on anything. It's not as powerful, shall we say? So that brings me to the end of this episode. Thank you very much for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please leave a like. Please do hit that subscribe button for more movie reviews, more trailer reactions, and other movie-related content. Most of all, we've absolutely loved having you. We'd love to have you back at SciFirst MovieTalk. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.